When setting up a personal studio or a streaming room, what is the biggest misconception that people have when they're setting up something like this?
So for me, it's not the camera and the mic. I want a controlled environment. Is really important to me that I've got my lights set up. I've got acoustic tiles set up in the room. So then whatever camera and mic I then choose to use, I'm going to get the most out of it. I'm going to get the best out of it.
TikTok. What do y'all think about when you hear the word TikTok? What do you think?
Personal side is I deleted it off my phone. For some reason, TikTok, I noticed that my bathroom breaks went from about 1 to 2 minutes to like 5 minutes because I would pull out the phone and then start doing this. And then I kind of just kept sitting there and it was like, okay.
Time evaporates.
This is getting ridiculous. Same with sleep. At the end of the day, I would do the doom scrolling, right? Every now and then I would just, it's 10:30 or 11 and I'd be there and then it's 1 a.m. I'm like,
Teams versus Zoom. Go ahead, Neil. I'll let you go first.
This could be career limiting.
You're listening to
Welcome to What the Tech, your gateway to business strategies and tech secrets shaping today's workplace. Hey, it's Rolando over here coming to you from the land of the free and the brave.
The land of the free and the brave, and I am Dave Kelly. Welcome to the show, Rolando. We got a pair of guests on today, don't we?
I know. We haven't done this in a while. The last time we did this was with our buddy who's the secret behind the Morgan Freeman voice, right? And we had review expert extraordinaire Milton from EBP Man.
EBP Man still putting some great stuff out there. He gets his hands on more technology than anybody I know.
Yes.
Probably some of the coolest stuff.
Right,
sure.
and Aaron G from who he does our pro tips. Maybe we'll launch a few of those during this episode to keep people keep people guessing on who that is. If you haven't checked that out, we had a great episode with Aaron G as well as EBP Man on tech and a whole bunch of other things. So
sure,
let's do we have big props, Dave? Who do you want to give? You have any big props or anybody today?
Listen, we're going to get big props, but let me just give a quick rundown with our two special guests today. So we have Phil Eggebrecht of Elgato and Neil Fluester of Crestron. Both of these guys are making their way to What the Tech Show. Hey, listen, picture this. Imagine you're hired as a keynote speaker for a multinational organization. Now, do you feel that your appearance wouldn't have an impact on how people perceive your messaging? Have you ever considered that every time you're on an online meeting, have you considered how you look and how you sound and what that means to the impression that you're leaving behind? Listen, on today's podcast, we're going to dive into how to ensure that your online meetings can leave the best possible lasting impression. And as always, if you want to get the full experience and sound effects, you'll want to listen with your headphones. If you're listening to this podcast, we will be serving up videos that you can watch on our circuitloops.com page. Rolando, back to you.
All right, awesome. I can't wait. We've got a British Mike and we've got Phil, who we were goofing around with his last name. Dave, you want to take a stab at his German?
I'm just going to say it the way that I would say it, Eggebrecht. But I believe...
Oh, Dave, you're not brave enough.
There's more to it. No, I don't.
You don't want to go there?
I don't impersonate people's accents like you do, Rolando.
I'm fascinated. I wish I was as good as even Aaron G. He's really good. He does a great Morgan. But maybe... Well, he gave us a little bit of license to go into it as an icebreaker, but all right. So I want to give big props, big props to Rachel Cottom. She came on our show during our last episode to talk about return to office and what that means to an employee's bottom line. Dave, you gave us a hard number in the thousands that could cost you big. So if you want to find out what that number is, along with some extra nuggets that she had to share with us, go check that out on circuitloops.com or wherever you consume your podcast. All right. Let's intro our guests. You want to handle that, Dave? Or you?
No, that's you. Head in. Dig it up.
Phil Eggebrecht. I hope I said that right now. I took a stab at it. Eggebrecht is the technical marketing manager at Elgato. Love the gear there. He's an expert in social media as well as a software and hardware engineering. Elgato is known to streamers and content creators worldwide for their awesome tech. I've got a few of their devices right here on my desk. And Neil Fluester. Neil is a global director with Crestron Electronics, an old friend of the show. And, you know, we go back to his days working at Poly, formerly Plantronics. And Neil is a genius when it comes to product marketing, and we are happy to welcome him back on the show. He may even be our returning champion. I would defer to my producer on that one. So let's bring on the show Phil and Neil. Hey, gentlemen. Good to see you. Did I get it wrong or did I screw it up? I wanted to take a stab at the last name, Phil.
I think you got it pretty good, but Dave, just a little bit better there.
Dave for the win.
How about that? You know, it's because I'm humble and kind, and I'm not trying to tease anybody. Rolando's the nasty one of the pair.
I'm the brave one. That's how I would call it. I love taking some risks, and you know, I was saying it in my brain as Phil was telling us, and I was.
Don't say it wrong. Don't say it wrong. Don't say it wrong.
Eggebrecht. Yeah, it's
Eggebrecht.
It's German, and it's interesting. So it's a combination of two old German words. That the first one is spear or like tip, and the second word is bearer. And so essentially, it means, or I guess it was the old way to say spear bearer, someone in the army who would hold a spear and just be a soldier.
Nice.
Wow.
Which I just learned somewhat recently, and I don't know, it's pretty cool.
You know, and the reason I wanted to take a stab at it is because my last name is only 5 letters and it's pronounced wrong all the time. R-O. Let's try a word game here. There we go. It's on screen now. Thanks, Ori. The last name. How would you say that? Phil?
Now that you've kind of teed me up here, Rosas?
Ooh, like you said, you got really close to being on the mark. That's better. Roas. I've heard Roas a lot. Rojas. There's no J, although there is a version of that with a J. But yeah, Roas, like return on ad spend seems to be a lot, or Rojas, right? So if you were saying it in the Espanol version, it'd be Rosas with that in there. Rosas.
British people can't make that noise, by the way. It's not in our. We don't make that noise in the King's English, I'm afraid. So.
No, it's not allowed.
Can't do that. So, interestingly, Fluester is whisper in German. So you got 2 Germans on the call technically today. So yeah, Fluester.
Wow. So we're going to be precise and accurate. If I were to use kind of the German way, we go.
Yeah, danke bitte.
There you go.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen. I really appreciate you all coming on. You all are coming on at just the right time because we want to jump into how could people really level up the game on being on a call on Zoom. Zoom's ubiquitous now. Teams has become ubiquitous. Other platforms that are in the communications and collaboration that are also using video as part of their platform are becoming more ubiquitous. But what isn't ubiquitous is really the look and feel, or the way you're coming across, or even realizing what kind of lasting impression you're leaving on people when you hop on a video. But before we hop into the video discussion, Dave, I believe you have some words for us.
Speaking of Zoom, hey, listen, are your clients or business partners keeping you awake at all hours of the night? And that happens to me sometimes. And listen, like so many salespeople that we know, you know what? They're using their personal cell phone numbers for business. They need to stop doing that. You know what? Did you know that you can easily use Zoom for both your online meetings and also your phone calls? It's possible. Take back the night so that you can sleep better, knowing that your phone won't be ringing and keeping you up all evening long. Listen, Zoom Phone allows you to keep your personal phone numbers separate so that you can rest more easily and be more efficient during the day. With Global Tech Worldwide as your Zoom partner, setting it up is as easy as 123. Check them out at tech.global/Zoom to get started. All right, Rolando, back to you.
Awesome, Dave. Thank you. Phone ringing at night. That just is a problem. But there's a fix for that. So, gents, I want to jump straight away into this with you. There's a lot going on in the tech world. This is a question to both of you. What are you nerding out on right now from a technology perspective that you can't get enough of? Let's open it up with Phil.
For me, it's got to be all this AI stuff, specifically text and Chat GPT. I keep putting stuff in. I'm doing these like hour-long drives here in the Bay Area, and I'm just thinking of things in the car, like, oh, I want to ask it this, I want to ask it that. All with the background of kind of, can this thing enable or give me capabilities that I couldn't do before? I'm not a software engineer. I love software though, and I love kind of I watch coding videos and just all sorts of content around that. So I was thinking, can this thing make me sort of an engineer without having actual programming knowledge? And indeed it has. I've been able to write some programs just using ChatGPT, but again, I have no personal experience in that. And that's kind of my fascination right now, is how is this, kind of like how Red Bull used to give you wings. What can ChatGPT do for you?
What can ChatGPT do for you? And I'd never heard of the term prompt engineering, and how you basically have to train or coach it to get you better outputs. Somebody pointed something out recently to me that I found really interesting. When you look at the announcement that OpenAI did regarding ChatGPT 4, there was a whole video around that. And during that prompt exercise of what it could do, the last phrase of what was being said was, "Do you understand?" And then the AI responds either in a way that you're really looking for it to do what you're asking, or no. And then that's the opportunity for you to be like, no, what I meant was, because it doesn't always get what you're trying to say the first crack. Like, give me the best marketing plan. Well, it could be for anything, right? The marketing plan for being on social media or selling a product or whatever. But the more you're able to feed it, and along with that, do you understand, allows you to make sure that that refinement that it needs can be produced when you get the results. So you get a much more meaningful result.
A little bit like Google search on steroids.
Yeah.
I still to this day have this discussion with my mother. She'll ask me, hey, how do I do this? How do I do that? And I tell her, well, just Google it. And she doesn't necessarily know what to type in to get the results she's looking for on Google. And now you take that and you make it X times more complicated, I guess technically it could be easier, but how do you tell this thing the right information? How do you give it the right prompt to get the information that you want? It is going to be a skill. It's something you can, I think, train up, and there are people who are going to stand out who will be able to make these things, give them incredible results. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm really trying to get my
ChatGPT.
my fingers into. Yeah.
We've given it a name around here, because saying ChatGPT is just too hard on the tongue, especially as often as we've used it. So we call him Eddie. We call Eddie. So anybody in our office, when we're talking about, did you put that through Eddie? Did Eddie double check that? We all know what we're talking about, because ChatGPT is just kind of I don't know, for me, it's hard to say that over and over again. But I would also open it up to Neil. What are you geeking out? Are you also geeking out on this AI stuff, or are you somewhere else with
I feel late to the party with the whole AI thing. It's quite fun. I mean, I think you put a post up the other day about social media stuff, and I'm just like, no, I can't. I feel old about this whole stuff. I have started embracing ChatGPT, but I ask it stupid questions like, write me a comment to put on LinkedIn or something like that, because I'm just being lazy. I love it, and it's powerful. I think the interesting thing in my world of the whole AI thing is around meeting transcription, speech to text, and being able to make meetings more clever and intelligent for us. So Microsoft and Zoom are putting in stuff now that will then transcribe your meeting, give you a word cloud, and you can then, from a recording point of view, go and look at specific things. So you can take a linear meeting and make it non-linear and say, okay, I just want to look at or listen to the bit where Neil talked about X or Rolando talked about whatever, and just watch that one piece. These kind of smart speakers and this transcribing stuff they're putting in, loving all of that. I think that's really cool. And then from a content creator side of things of my life, there's some really cool editing stuff now coming out. It used to be just Adobe Premiere. Everyone used to get Premiere, and that was your tool. But I've recently started using, is it CapCut or CamCut? I think it's called.
CapCut?
I was trying to, I love that. It's free, which is brilliant. So awesome. And there's another one, which I can't remember, which takes a script and makes a video out of the script. Again, it's another kind of free, I can't remember the name, but I'm trying to look for it. Those are
There's
really
Descript,
powerful.
there's even Opus AI.
I think it's Descript. You can literally edit verses, and it'll take all your runs out, basically.
Descript.
So that looks amazing and awesome to me. So again, the more tools that will simplify and automate my creation process, I think is brilliant. Loving that. I say CapCut, I think, is awesome at the moment for quickly creating social reels.
Yeah, and those are some of the free options that are out there.
I don't know. How is Adobe gonna make up with that when they charge however much for Creative Suite?
I think about what the licensing costs for Adobe or what it costs for Pro Tools and things like that. And then here comes these kind of free trial versions, and anyone can do it. Huge time savers. We're huge fans of Descript. We use that quite often, and just being able to kind of easily remove kind of uncomfortable parts, or taking out the uhs and ums and repetitive words and things like that. The other thing that I heard you mention, Neil, was the captioning piece.
Yeah.
So even some of these hardware providers, like EPOS, for example, within some of their speakers, the AI is learning whose voice is talking. So there could be one of these speakers in a table with 6 people, but those 6 people might be 6 different people every hour. There's a different meeting.
There you go.
And they're learning people's voices. Oh, okay. Learning people's voices. What you said, reviewing meetings. So we'll go back, we record everything. Yeah. And if we have someone that's in the team that maybe isn't on that call, but we need their attention when they go back to listen to the recording, we need their attention. We'll call out that person's name. We'll have the conversation about what we need from that person. And then when the video is sent to them, all they need to do to sit, because again, to sit through an hour-long meeting that you missed, now, all they have to do is just search for their name. It'll come up to where it is, and huge time savers. Huge.
Actually, Jabra, again, props to Jabra, big friend of Jabra. They've introduced it on the Panacast 50 now as a software upgrade. So that was going to do transcription as a software update for Teams, I think, in the whatever release is coming out. So if you've got a Panacast, you'll get that transcription thing for free. So love that. Again, the fact that you used to, the old days of record players and tapes, they were linear. You press play and you have to listen to the whole thing. The fact you can now just go, oh, and that bit, awesome. Anyway,
so hey, in this episode, so we're going to be talking about home studio setups. I have a question for both of you. When setting up a personal studio or a streaming room, what would you say? What is the biggest misconception that people have when they're setting up something like this?
Neil, take it away.
Oh, you want me? Okay, I'll go first.
I got the other one first. You're up.
All right, okay, I'll go first. So for me, it's not the camera and the mic, but it's the actual environment. So when I set this room up, I wanted to have the lighting behind me and just some stuff on the shelf to give some depth of field. But then it's also the lighting and the acoustics, which many people don't look at. I also have, blinds to block out the light in the day, because I don't want the light to go up and down and change during the day. So I want a controlled environment. Is really important to me, that I've got my lights set up. I've got the acoustic tiles set up in the room. So then whatever camera and mic I then choose to use, I'm going to get the most out of it. I'm going to get the best out of it, because they are, great tools, but without a good environment and a good room, those tools are going to be hampered by that. So for me, getting your actual environment and space right, and thinking about your background. You don't want like a really busy background to take away from you. You know, you're the important person or the content. So having something that's nice and pleasing on the eye, I think, and then again, obviously, then get some great audio and video tech to add to it.
But also the setup that you're in, I mean, it shows kind of, right, it's a representation of you and kind of your personality and the things you're into, right? I mean, I think Neil behind you, I see a lot of tech. Got the
gamer chair
behind
too.
you, I can see, what is that, like, I think a keyboard, or is that right?
They're all
and
He's a company man. He's got to represent.
Exactly, yeah.
Doing a better job than I am at that. I've just got a bunch of Blu-rays and a map of the Lord of the Rings canvas over here.
Those are good, interesting. Where's your favorite place on that map, right?
Oh, I ask myself every time before I go to sleep because I'm looking kind of directly at it. And I don't know, it's just cool overall to have this big canvas print. But it just adds to a little bit, everyone's different. Everyone has different things that they enjoy. And previously, kind of, I would say even before the pandemic, I don't think people put as much thought into what was kind of behind them. It was just grab your laptop, grab your camera, grab whatever. 100%. And I mean, the chance that you're doing a meeting from home is already, pretty slim. And then you would just kind of take whatever. Whereas now, folks are spending a lot more time thinking about not just the audio and the video, but also just generally, what's going on, in the entire picture, basically, right? Because in the end, we're all putting on a presentation all the time.
No doubt.
I hate the blurred background. So when people, I mean, it was a great feature that they brought out, the whole kind of blurred backgrounds, but it's I find it very distracting because you get this kind of halo around the person because unless you've got a super great camera and great lighting, the rest of it doesn't cut perfectly. And I always want to think, what are you hiding? What are you? Why are you blurring out? What's going on behind you? So I like the fact that again you have this depth of field. They call it bokeh. Again, Phil's got it on his. I've got it on mine. So it's not in focus. You can't quite make out what's behind us, but it's there and it gives that depth to it. And again, it's sort of nice and soft. But if you do it virtually, I always hate that, or people that have these. The other thing is they've always got the same background. You're like, hang on, are you sharing the flat with the person I met with an hour ago? Are you living in the same place, or what's going on?
And I think, Neil, that Zoom and some of the other platform providers probably came out with that as a reaction to exactly what we were just talking about. Things thrown in the background, distractions, right, going on behind you, less than flattering things to look at, right? Because what you were saying, Phil, it was an afterthought. So this is better than looking at all this mess, right? But we're way beyond that now, right? And the technology and the devices and the cost on some of these things are within the reach for a lot of people, as well as a lot of companies that distribute this equipment to their employees. And that's where we want to go next. I want you both to react. I'm also queuing up our producer here to bring up a clip that we have that I want you both to look at. They're very short on both sides. And then we'll have a discussion around both of these video clips and see what your thoughts are on that. And so just so that you have it in mind when you're looking at this, what if your boss looked and sounded like what you're about to see?
Morale's a little low. I want everybody at the office tomorrow, and I want you to bring your pet. Okay? Don't care what pet it is, dog, cat, bring your pet. Next thing we want you to do is make sure they have clothes on. All right, clothes.
All right. So that's video number one. Ori, jump into video number two. Again, think about what if your boss looked and sounded like this. Go ahead. Video number two.
Where's Patrick been? That's what you're asking yourself. You're like, I've been on LinkedIn every day and YouTube every day. I keep watching for videos that Patrick is going to produce, and he's produced nothing in the last couple of weeks. And you're absolutely right. I have not. I haven't produced anything publicly in the last 2 weeks for you to view on LinkedIn because I've been doing other stuff. I was not hired at Zoom to create videos. That is not why I was hired. I was hired as a distinguished architect to really help with pre-sales motions for the revenue and engineering team. And I continue to do that. I continue to do that every day. The video thing just kind of evolved organically.
I know that feeling.
So look at this. This is Patrick Kelly that we're looking at.
Yeah, he's
an
great.
awesome,
He's an
awesome guy from Zoom. He's super technical, and he's really become very comfortable in his skin. You know, Patrick, you want to come on the show? Love to have you talk a little bit more about this. I love this kind of mix between Little John and Slash, right? I love this combo. You know, it's really interesting. But what we were talking about earlier, you know, on the first video, I don't want to put any words in your mouth. I want to let you guys speak. So Neil, you kicked off the last question. Phil, go ahead. What are your thoughts if one of these two gentlemen were your boss and you're hearing and listening to this video? Well, that's kind of the question.
My first reaction right away is also, is that even real? I mean, my gosh, the whole setup of the entire thing is like really that actually happened. But hey, I guess it did. Oh man, I mean, where to begin, right? It's just
wherever you want to begin.
If I were sitting in a meeting, or you know, even if it's just a one-on-one or something, and that's the presentation I'm getting from the other side, that's rough. I mean, it's hard to see, it's hard to hear, it's not eye-catching, it's not, you know, pleasing to the eye. I would be completely tuned out and zoned out, right? I mean, that's just not
and it's far too common right now, Phil, still in today, as we film this in 2023, that first video, I would still say is the default rather than the other way around. Would you say, would you agree or disagree with that?
I would certainly agree. We see this even on, you know, news broadcasts. You know, if CNN pulls on a guest, they'll have, you know, terrible over processed audio because they're probably sitting in, you know, some large room with background noise, or you know, they're just in an environment that isn't ideal. And I'm thinking, you're going on like national television, and you know, this isn't even something internal that are coming. You're going on national television. This is how you present yourself.
Yes,
you know, that is incredible. And over the past couple of years, and maybe, you know, I think we'll probably get here, but over the past couple of years, we've had many instances where executives and leaders and kind of leadership teams are coming to us and asking, you know, what is the gear that you have, and what can you recommend, and how can you know, set something up so that our executives and our leaders can look really good, you know, sound really good, and come across better. And that really just started with the pandemic, right? I mean, before that, it wasn't really a discussion topic at all. And well, here we are today. So
yeah, no doubt. And I think that when you're talking about being the default, I think today you can be very intentional about the image that you're putting on. You know, if there was I don't know if you've heard of Chris Voss. He's a very famous former FBI negotiator. He had some really interesting take on this, that your eyes and ears aren't deceiving you. And it's a first impression is still important, but the lasting impression is the last impression. The last impression is the lasting impression. And as a FBI negotiator, that's what he's trying to work in the mind of somebody. And I although we are not doing hostage negotiation, we're doing business negotiation, we're convincing, we're trying to influence. You're trying to leave that lasting impression. And so upping the game where, like you said, it's hard to really, you know, stay engaged in an online meeting when the sound sounds like you're over there in that corner, right? And the video is maybe less than flattering. So it almost takes away from the focus of what you're trying to accomplish in the meeting, whether you're pitching and negotiating or you're doing some kind of internal meeting. Would you say that's about right, Phil, or no?
Yeah, definitely. It just takes what we've been doing before, more so in an office, right? You might have a group meeting, you prepare a nice PowerPoint, you get everyone in a room, everyone sits around, you know, everyone closes their laptop, or at least they used to. Nowadays, that seems to also not be a thing so much anymore. But everyone, you know, closes their laptop or doesn't even bring one in. And then a person gets up in front and, you know, presents to a whole group. And, within that, there was thought about how they're going to present, the material that they're presenting. So why should that be any different when we're doing it online, right? And in that first example, it felt a little bit like the actual presentation itself, the information is the same, but everything else was an afterthought, right? The audio, the video, how it comes across was just, maybe it was an afterthought. Maybe they just couldn't get the tech or the gear in time. Maybe there was the know-how was missing, right? All of that. But really, it just, there was no preparation done. So what does that tell you if a leader in your team or at your company is, presenting themselves that way and, coming unprepared when they should ideally be the most prepared?
And that particular footage was shot on a laptop, on your standard Lenovo laptop. That's the footage. And for those folks that are watching this on video, you'll get those dynamics between the two videos that we just shot. So Neil, you got to see those two video clips. What are your impressions on what you saw, and what would you think if your boss was on one of those two videos?
Well, it's funny because I wasn't expecting a test, so I was already panicking when you went, they've got a test for you. So at that point, and then you played the first video, and I'm sitting there thinking, oh my God, what are they saying? So I was concentrating so hard to try and listen because the audio was terrible. And that's the first thing is I was really having to concentrate way more than I would normally in a conversation to try and understand what they were saying. And I think if you were listening to that for more than 30 seconds or a minute, the word that would come up would be fatigue. If you had to sit through that for any period of time, you'd be knackered. Beautiful English term. By the end of the meeting,
what is knackered?
Because
for us non-Brits,
you'd be worn out. It's hard work to your brain to just concentrate so hard. What's he saying? And then from a visual,
by the way, Neil, can I? Because I had an idea why you said knackered. Did you think that is probably one of the reasons that so many people experience Zoom fatigue early on, as everybody or more people were logged in on Zoom and Teams and were just basically that's all they did all day long, because you're knackered at looking at some less than flattering video?
Yeah, and again, I don't think it's necessarily the video that was, and the video I'll come to in a second, but the audio, you would have huge fatigue having to listen and concentrate to that, or you would switch off and start doing something else. If you're watching that remotely and you had dual screen, you would absolutely be on Amazon or on somewhere else or on the What the Tech or Elgato website shopping for stuff and not concentrating on your boss's pitch. The interesting thing about the video is, obviously it's around engagement. I wasn't engaged in the video particularly, but I think the one thing about the video is and again, Phil mentioned it about giving a presentation. What we really need to think about more is not giving a presentation, but it's storytelling. When we create content, when we create presentation, you can go and do a 50-slide presentation with a load of bullets in it, or you can tell a story. And if you tell a story, that's what's engaging. And again, you're going back to your anecdote about the FBI guy. That is what people remember, the story of the presentation, the pitch, the whatever it was. And again, it's the same for a good book and a terrible book. If you get a good book that's engaging and is written well and presented well, you'll be way more captivated and engaged into that book or video or audio, whatever it might be. So audio fatigue, video, the lack of storytelling and engagement. Patrick's stuff I love. The thing I love about Patrick, he's got the dual camera set up. We did in the green room earlier. I can't do that because this bit looks perfect. This bit looks terrible. It's carnage. But I love the fact that he's switching over. I don't know, he was using a Stream Deck or whatever to do an AB cam switch on it or whatever. But I love that. And it's just, I do find his background quite busy and distracting. But again, from a storytelling point of view, from a video and from an audio point of view, you could listen to that all day long. I mean, and you could watch that all day long. It's compelling. And he's a great storyteller. If you watch his content,
he is really good at getting your attention. And I pointed that clip out. I mean, he's got more. Yeah, it was hard to pick out, but this was the attention grabbing nature of him, kind of looking like Slash. He didn't have the hair coming out of the top hat, but the cane with the dollar sign. I just think of Snoop Dogg or Lil Jon saying, yeah. I was just waiting for him to say something around that, but he didn't. But
it's interesting.
yeah,
Attention is you had the guy that does Gary V stuff, and Gary V always talks about you need a customer's attention, you need your staff's attention. Without their attention, you can't give the presentation, you can't sell the product, you can't, you can make a million videos, PowerPoints, emails, or whatever. If you don't have their attention, your message is not going to land, and that's what we're trading on all the time is people's attention. And the first video is certainly not going to get my attention.
And now we have this technology. We need to take advantage of it. It used to be, I'm giving my presentation today. I have the people there, and I'm wearing my $1 million suit. I'm going to look like $1 million. And so now I'm going to go out there. So you had what you had, but now you have your $1 million suit, but you also have everything else. Your $1 million camera, your $1 million background. You have all these ways that you can grab someone's attention, take advantage of it. And I think a lot of us don't. And I don't know, at what point do you tell someone to step up their game? At what point would you tell that the person in the first clip that, listen, there's no color, can't hear you, you're too far away, when is it appropriate to have higher expectations from people?
I think today that is, I would say, just the expectation. I mean, it really is. Us sitting here and using the gear that we have is within the reach of pretty much any company out there, right? If they're providing that, which they should to their employees. I mean, if you want to talk about effective work, if you're doing sales pitches, or, even if you're just leading like big group meetings in engineering or something like that, you've got to come across, well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really not that big of an ask to just get a dedicated microphone, get a dedicated camera. Don't use what's built in. It's kind of, the standard issue used to be when you join a company that you'll get a laptop and maybe a hat, maybe a t-shirt. Well, add to that, a microphone, a camera, maybe a light, maybe something else, maybe like a Stream Deck Mini here or there.
Yes.
Give a little control. But that should really be a part of it. And it's interesting because that's what we started seeing quite early on as well. Google was doing that. So Google added, they send this massive package of gear to someone who joins the company. And, it would be a laptop, and then, the hat with the little spinny thing on top, right? If you're a Googler. But then they also started adding one of our Elgato Key Light Airs to that, right? And so immediately, nice. If you were then using your laptop, still not the best, but at least they then had a dedicated light that they could use. I'm not sure if a microphone was also part of the package, but for sure a Key Light Air was, and that's kind of that first step into that. And it shouldn't be on you as the employee to also, provide this stuff. I mean, really, a company should do it, at least in my opinion.
That's also because you're representing a company, right? Especially if you're dealing with patients, clients outside the company org, and you are representing the company. I mean, prior to doing this, I was an area manager, and you're representing that company when you step into a client's office. The way you look, the way you present, the way you talk, the material that you come with, right? All that's is part of a package. And being online, doing it virtually, like you said, Phil, I don't think it's different. And so in bringing forward a package that allows that employee, that manager to represent the organization and having a really good lasting impression, I think it's important for companies to start evaluating that more now that so many millions, hundreds of millions of people are doing business online. And in a lot of places, it's what you do now. It's part of your work life is on meetings, right? I don't think we're going away from that. If anything, like you said, we've got to try to find a way to enhance it. So what I want to do is tap into some of what you were starting to hit on, both of you, which is, what are some of the secrets that you all see? And before we get there, Ori, go ahead and roll the intro to the top secrets.
Well-kept secrets, well-kept secrets. Gotta keep them safe and sound well. But secrets are just like diamonds.
Okay. All righty. So one of the things that we like to talk about here is the fun fact about the AI on that. That was written in part by an AI machine that helped compose that, as well as some of the score on that. So AI, thank you, Eddie, for helping write some of that, as well as I can't remember the other program. This is the program we used for AI. So
Nice.
Fun fact about AI for work purposes. So Phil, Neil, we were just talking here earlier before we went on to hit the record button about some of the things that would be useful for folks that are getting their personal studio or home studio or huddle room going and they want to upgrade. One of the things that you said to us, Phil, was that a Stream Deck is not only for streaming. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so that's something. It's Stream Deck. The name.
What is
kind
a
of
Stream Deck? People might not
Yeah,
know
I
what a
should
Stream Deck is.
probably-
Yeah, probably
Yeah.
just rewind on that quickly. Sorry.
Okay. Go
that's
for it.
Definitely, yeah. I wish I actually had one to kind of hold up. I unfortunately don't.
I'll
How
help
long
you
my
there.
cable is
I'll be
now.
your Vanna White.
There
gonna
you
go
go.
wrong.
Vanna White.
So
That's what
the
they're
Stream
supposed
Deck is essentially a controller board that
There you
has
go.
buttons on it, which
Perfect.
those buttons are LCD keys. They're essentially, if you think about it, they're little displays. They're not, big TV like. They're very small. They have a much smaller resolution, but they can have anything on them, and they're buttons. So you can tap on it, you can press it, and then it'll do some sort of function. The Stream Deck is something that we came up with back in 2017, I think, is when we launched the first one, because we were taking, at Elgato, we're all about, content creators and making their lives easier. And we were looking at kind of what are the biggest pain points that creators have today, and back in 2017. And what we realized is that if you're a creator, you are your entire staff, right? You are the tech director, you're the producer, you're the on-air talent, you're also the IT right? You're everything. You're the graphics designer, right? You handle the entire show. And there wasn't really a tool that allowed you to manage all of that in a quick and efficient way while still putting on an engaging presentation, being able to do up graphics, trigger sound effects, switch scenes, do all the things that you would see in a more professional broadcast, or, even if you had one other person controlling it, something like that. And so that's where Stream Deck kind of came from. But we wanted to also take it a step further and not just do something where, okay, you have to print out little stickers and then put it on, right? That sort of thing. What could be even better? And so we developed the Stream Deck with these LCD keys that can have anything on them. So maybe I have one key set up for a microphone mute, and if I tap it, it actually turns that icon red to indicate, or it has like a red slash through to indicate that the microphone is off, which, well, that's something, again, you can't really do on other devices that don't have these LCD keys if you print something out, or maybe they're just color coded, right? They have an LED underneath or something like that. But again, we wanted to actually show a status on there. And so it's really awesome as kind of a secondary just display device and control device. In front of me, actually, I have one that's just showing my network ping. So it's a key that's actually constantly pinging. I think it's like 1.1.1.1, and just shows it on the key with a little green, green background if everything's good. If my ping ever goes up because either I'm uploading something or AT&T is having issues, then it turns orange, and if there's no network connection, it turns red. So I immediately know during my broadcast, or even on our show here, if my network is going to be all good or not. And I can just have that on the key.
And that's good to know, because you don't have any doubt whether your image is coming through choppy or not. And I think that the longer that you are online, the more times you'll experience, more often than not, the network can go down or degraded, because a bunch of people are in your area and they're putting a strain on the bandwidth, right? And now you'll know, okay, I may have some problems with my video or whatever streaming thing that you're doing at the moment, versus not knowing at all, and you're thinking everything's just fine.
Mm-hmm. And that has technically nothing to do with streaming, right? That's just a really nice kind of second screen utility function of the Stream Deck. I also just have it set up to open a bunch of folders. I don't know how many screenshots you guys take, but I take quite a lot of screenshots, and I save them all into folders. And I always, well, in the past, I would always have to navigate through, you know, my file directory and, you know, find all the screenshots. Now I have a single key on the Stream Deck that I press. It just opens that folder, and I immediately have access to all my recent screenshots.
Nice.
So I kind of took what normally would be kind of annoying or, you know, take multiple clicks and reduce that down to one key press. Or even like opening websites. Basically, all the things that are kind of mundane, but that you do a lot that are super repetitive, you can just map those all onto keys. You know, you press a key, boom, it just opens the website. It opens your programs for you, right? It opens Zoom, Teams, whatever you're using.
I love it, Phil. Let me just tell you, I haven't even maxed out all the keys on mine, but it is a work enhancer for productivity. Because yes, it will make the creative process easier. I can launch a bunch of things, sound effects, videos, I can do a playlist. But from a worker's perspective, I can create shortcuts like to mute on Zoom. I can create shortcuts that will get to that folder for screenshots. I can create 3 steps of something that would have been 3 or 4 clicks into that with one button. And all of a sudden that thing is in my face, or it launches the thing that I want it to do.
Yeah, and the app's not always in the foreground, is it? That's the thing. You're in a Teams call, but then you're maybe looking at a PowerPoint presentation presenting, or you've got a web page up. You're not to then go and minimize that, go to Teams or Zoom, find the mute button, press the mute, but you can just go bang and it's there. Or like the reactions now in Teams and Zoom, you can have the, you know, clapping, smiling and all that. Again, without having to go to thing, find the menu, drop it down, you just go happy, sad, clap. Whatever.
And a core pillar of Stream Deck is that those integrations that you mentioned, like pulling up, you know, the reactions or opening Zoom or muting a microphone, those aren't just hotkey based. You know, hotkey solutions have existed for a long time. You know, you can just use your keyboard for that, right? F1 through F12 if you really wanted to. But hotkeys can be unreliable. They might not trigger if the app isn't in the foreground. And so the one thing that we really, really push for with Stream Deck is that if you are building a plugin for it, if you're integrating your tool with the Stream Deck, make that a real API integration. You know, have it that where if I, you know, press the mute key on Stream Deck, you know, that sends that mute command to Teams. Teams will respond and say, yep, I'm now muted. And then Stream Deck knows that. And so that way also, if I go into Teams and I unmute using my mouse, they'll show up right on the Stream Deck, right? And so that creates also that
feedback, that status indicator almost.
Exactly. And also just the knowledge that what you're doing is happening. There's nothing worse than pressing a key and kind of nothing happens and you're maybe in a critical moment. You're like, oh my gosh, you know, I need it to mute because I'm about to cough and then it doesn't react.
You're on mute, Bill. You're on mute. And that's a panic when you're on mute because you're looking for the mouse and then you got to look for on the screen where the mute is. And I love that you can just unmute and mute with a button on the Stream Deck.
Yeah.
And so in that sense, it's really not just for streaming. And it was pretty slow initially on the uptake, you know, before the pandemic. We also just we didn't push it in that direction. It's still called Stream Deck. We're going to continue calling it Stream Deck because that's kind of its
productivity
primary
deck.
A work deck.
A work deck. Yeah, there's lots of things. It's actually kind of become its own thing now. We do have like imitators that are calling there's also like Deck. So Deck kind of, they're basing it off of that. But during the pandemic, you know, folks found the Stream Deck and found these use cases that have nothing to do with, you know, gaming, nothing to do with content creation, but just it's a device that enhances your workflow, you know, makes sometimes menial tasks just easier, quicker. And also more fun. Frankly, it's cool and futuristic to tap on a thing that is, you know, displaying information at you. You know, it goes a little bit in the direction of like, you know, like a Star Trek style, you know,
mission control
panel in front of you. Exactly.
I like what you're saying because we have a button around here. Ori, give him a little taste of what we do with pro tips.
Get ready for a pro tip.
So I've got a bunch of these built into the Stream Deck to do all of this kind of stuff. And it has made the content creation much enriching and fun to be able to have those just at your fingertips. Boom, whether it's launching something like that or some other thing that, again, like you're saying, repetitive thing or an efficiency thing. It really is made like, when I think about it, and I'm not just saying this because you're here, Phil, when I think about it, it makes the experience a little more fun for the workday that can be just very boring. Sometimes you just work can be boring. That's just flat out, right? Creating content is time consuming, and sometimes there's a lot of boring things happening, but this just gives that extra panache, that extra added touch when you have all these little creative things at your fingertips. So that's what leads into the next thing. So you are moving along. You've got these, this tool like that. One of the things that you mentioned to us as well, Neil, was right before we got on air. One of the secrets to doing this is just hitting record. What do you mean by that?
It's I watch loads of YouTube. I watch way too much YouTube and not enough real TV probably. But I follow like Casey Neistat and Think Media and those things. And people want to create content. I think there's a lot of people who wants to create video, but are scared to create video, and they'll always come up with blockers and reasons why they haven't created video. So my camera's no good, my microphone's no good. My lighting's terrible, and what you need to do is to hone the skill, hone your storytelling, getting comfortable in front of the camera, rather than coming up with excuses about, I don't have the best camera, I don't have the best gear. And Casey did a great thing. It's not about gear, it's about just pressing record. And again, anecdotally, I said, before we started, I joked I created a video on how to spatchcock a chicken. Now, I'll put a link on YouTube. You can go and watch it if you want. And someone said to me, wow, do you record everything you do? And it's like, my first video that I did on YouTube, however many years ago it was, is terrible. And, you go and look back at it. But honing that skill and being able to be like I do now at a trade show, I'll switch the camera on and can instantly switch persona and go, hey, everyone, welcome. We're here at ISE 2023 and we're on the Crestron booth. And you can switch and be way comfortable and just roll with it. That's the most important thing.
I love your content, Neil.
Start doing it.
Especially when you're on site. Especially when you're on site, because you don't see a lot of it, so it makes it very unique. And I love the approach and freshness you bring to it. And it's like, yeah, I'm there with you when you're bringing your experience through. And I see the post usually on LinkedIn.
You make me blush now, aren't you?
No, I will comment on your stuff and be like, yeah, I love it. But I'm glad you're here, so I can tell you right in this camera when I'm looking at you. I love it. Keep doing it. And
the first ones were terrible.
What's that?
Yeah, the first ones I did were terrible, and I had a terrible camera and a terrible camera setup and an audio setup and all the rest of it. But I just kept doing it, and again, Gary will say, one is greater than zero. You got one view on that video, and you think, only one person's watched it, but that one person could be the CEO, whatever. And again, we create this content, to help and inform and educate in most cases, and that's why we're doing it. It's the thank you economy. Again, Gary talks about the thank you economy, the fact that we're giving free information that people will go, thank you for that. I will come and buy stuff from you or talk to you or engage with you. That's what we're trying to do. And again, by pressing record and creating content, just getting on with it, it's going to be terrible. But after you've done 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 of them, it'll be much better. And then you can buy some good gear from Elgato and it'll look even better.
Yes. And you know what Mr. Beast says? I've seen some of his interviews. He says, don't worry about the first 100. He says 100. The first 100 are garbage. Just know that they're going to be garbage. The first 100. He's talk to me after the 100th video. Then we could talk about all these other finer points like you're saying. But yeah, getting some muscle memory around just looking into a solid, inanimate object,
soulless,
like a camera, soulless camera, like and you're like, is there somebody real on the other side? I don't have a reaction, but doing that the first, second, third, by the time you just sitting down talking, because it does take some time to just be like you said, I love that word, soulless. You're talking to a soulless thing as if it were a real
piece of
person, right? As if it laughs back at you at your jokes or your moments, right? It doesn't do any of that. but it takes some getting used to that thing looking at you the entire time, and you kind of talking to it like if it was a puppet or something, or somebody actually there.
And you're not going to learn just by analyzing and preparing. You need to jump out and hit record and do it. Neil, one of the pieces of content that I love that you did probably about 3 or 4 months ago, you were doing on the bus interviews post trade show. And we chatted about that, and you told me, you said you went on there and you told the people your camera's going on in like 2 seconds. Going to come around, ask you some questions, and people didn't really have a chance to prepare, which really gave, true, honest feedback. And I really liked that piece that you did.
Thanks, man. It's funny. People, again, lots of companies will spend thousands, tens, hundreds of thousands of pounds, these massively produced pieces of video, stock footage and camera crew and all the rest of it. But in many cases, the real is not the Instagram reel, but the real life, the real moments that aren't scripted and aren't, produced. Me on a bus, nearly dying, going down a highway in Madrid, it was fun, brilliant, and people watched it and loved it. So yeah, it was great fun. So yeah, thank you. But yeah, those are the great ones. I love doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you never know when you're going to have a really good piece of content. I got to tell you, one of our most watched videos was one, I think episode 1, we took a snippet from it. We put it on YouTube. Right now, it's our most watched snippet online, and the camera was terrible. The audio wasn't great, but it was better than I had a headset on, so it was better than just the webcam audio. But compared to today, boy, it looks like I was in grade school trying to shoot a video versus today. But that comes from, like you said, hitting record, trying. Keep going, trying some new things, pick up a thing here or there along the way, and you improve, which leads to the next thing. Phil, you said, maybe both of you said this third one when we were talking. It's all in the audio. Phil, you want to take that one?
Yeah, we touched on that a little bit earlier, right? Around Zoom fatigue or this online meeting fatigue, and one of the catalysts for that is just bad audio. I mean, I'm sure everyone listening, and we've all here been in a call or been in a chat where most people sound okay, and then there's that one person who's in a car or who has a fan on the background or who is typing on their keyboard while talking, and our brain is essentially a decoder, right? Like we take in information, we have to decode it, and if we have to spend all this time taking in all this like extraneous information and have to decode that and then filter, the actual words from everything else, that takes more brain power. That, it's literally harder for us to do. So, if someone has all that other noise coming in and you have to work around that just to listen to what they're actually saying, yeah, you will get tired if you're doing that, 8 hours a day.
Who wants to, I know, I don't want to sit through that. The challenging audio, sometimes things happen where, you got, dogs in the background. Sometimes they just jump in and out. But if you can control that and give the audience something they're going to be really pleasantly surprised, it's going to be able to really up the engagement. I was recently on kind of like an online experience for a magician. They'd actually sent home. So you do this ahead of time. They sent to the house like an experience box, and it had some things in it. And along with the presentation, and you could tell this was done probably in somebody's room, but everything was set up in a way where it engaged your senses. The video, the lighting, the audio, and the sequencing of what happened, that you almost forget, you almost forget where you were at. And I gotta say, it was really an experience. And I was like, I bet this is going to be the way of the future, because there are a lot of people right now, as we're talking about this, that they're not very mobile for whatever reason. They're sick, they're disabled, they have limited mobility. Those people are left out of the game, when we're talking about moving about. But now those people are people that can participate, especially if you're putting content out. They can consume that. They can see the experience. They're not limited by going to a theater or somewhere where they couldn't go because of their access issues or because they're not able to. So I think you're onto something here, Phil, and I think that having a way to bring up the experience changes the game. And I know for me, having been online, trying this online magician experience, I love magic, by the way. It was really awesome to see how far you can take the experience versus, the standard webcam audio and video. Neil, was there something you wanted to add on this too?
I mean, audio is huge. Again, you could actually close your eyes and listen to this podcast or video podcast without seeing our beautiful faces, and you would still get the message, because the message is firstly in the audio. There's a couple of dynamics that maybe you guys don't know so much, but certainly we in Europe have, where maybe English isn't your first language, maybe it's your second language. And again, if you're listening to someone, and I talk quite fast, and again, my friend in Germany was saying, she said, "You talk so fast, you need to slow down." And I used to do stuff in other countries where, again, English isn't their first language, and again, having good, rich, high quality audio makes their life so much easier. We used to have a thing at Poly where we would test competitors' products, and we would use different words like hold, cold, sold, told, and bold. And could you define the difference between hold, cold, sold, told, and bold on these different competitors' microphones at different distances away from these like speakerphones? That was the kind of test that we used to do. And, you get the competitors' ones at 3 meters, and you could no definition between, hold, cold, sold, told, and bold. Those were the things that we used to define. And again, without good audio, those are really difficult for, again, native English speakers or native, local language speakers, but also people where, again, maybe there's an English meeting and there's a couple of French people, or a couple of German people, a couple of Eastern Europeans, their English isn't so good, and they're struggling to, again, they've got to compute that through their brain and translate it through one ear, through the brain, and out the other. That can be really, really hard for them. The other interesting thing is, listening between AM and FM radio. Who wants to listen to AM radio these days? It's awful, horrible. Having nice, rich, and again, there's the different stages of all of this that we've been talking about. There's stage 0, which is built-in laptop, which is terrible and horrible. There's then stage 2, which is, get yourself a headset. That's kind of better. But then all of us have kind of leveled up to a more of a pro studio XLR mic, whether it's again an Elgato or a Shure or whatever. And again, going through a proper audio processor will give you that really rich tonal audio. That's just nice to listen to. That kind of radio broadcaster audio, again, rather than a headset or a speakerphone or a built-in laptop. And I think that's, as you're leveling up your game, you need to kind of work out which level you want to get to. Again, laptop, no, ignore it. Do you want to go up to a speakerphone? Do you want to go to then a headset mic, or then again go the full hog and go full broadcast studio production like we're all doing, which is just the whole nother level to the production.
It's also
agreed.
It's
No,
also,
go for it, Phil.
if you think about where your content is going to be delivered, I think I was saying before the show, I work out in the gym. I don't have a video screen, that I'm looking at. But if I wanted to, I could still listen to this podcast, to this show, and, receive all the information. Or if I'm driving in my car, maybe to work, since, return to office is happening in some locations, then people can still consume your content. If your audio is bad, but you have really high quality 8K 60 video or something, well, that person in that car, they might just not tune in because, well, they can't really understand it or whatever. And so that's why I believe that, when it comes down to it, and I'm not saying it's like a 2-to-1 ratio or something, but if you kind of prioritize them just a little bit, it's like audio is just that little bit higher than video, because it'll just no matter where you deliver or kind of who you're who's going to be listening to that, it will make a bigger impact.
No doubt. I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. I go back and listen to myself from the early days, and I cannot believe how much a difference podcast microphone can make on the audio, but it's enormous. It is night and day.
You sound fantastic.
Thank you. I want to ask you something before we have something I want to jump into. Where do you see? Where's the? I mean, Elgato's is on the forefront of devices and technology for content creators. What's the future look like? If you were to had a crystal ball, what does that look like? Where are we going in the next year or two with video at home or video in the workplace?
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really good question, and I could talk for hours about this. I think where we have to start
with an NDA in place.
Yeah, we all have NDAs.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's fine. Roadmap's fine.
I think what helps first is to kind of define or say that we are all content creators in a sense, right? Even if you are using our products in a work environment, you are still creating content. That content isn't going out to a public audience. It's going maybe to an internal private audience, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe it's just a one-on-one, or maybe it's a group or something. But it's still, and Neil, I think you mentioned earlier, it's still storytelling, right? You're still presenting to an audience. It just, again, might not be a public town square. And so it's incredibly, important to come across, high quality, high video, good audio, good video, all of that. And it's a little bit analogous to, and this is how we internally at Elgato and are kind of looking at this. Maybe this should have been this internal secret for earlier, or the pro tip, I guess. But
all right, hold on a second. Ori, hit us with a pro tip. Número dos.
Here comes a pro tip.
Lay it on us, Phil. What's that pro tip número dos?
So, yeah, the way you present yourself is analogous to, and Dave mentioned it earlier, but a suit, right? In the past, you would go get a really nice suit, and you would go into an office feeling like $1 million. Today, you want to hop on a call, you want to do a digital meeting, you still want to feel like $1 million, which if you're wearing a suit, yeah, that's nice. But if you don't come across, if you can't present that, then kind of what's the point? And so, we at Elgato see ourselves as the outfitter of your digital suit. Your digital suit being all the tools that you use to present yourself online. That's audio, video, stream deck, lighting, kind of setup customization, right? All the pieces that you would normally have in a real suit, now in kind of this digital form. And we're not saying like avatars or anything like that. No, it's simply, what are the tools and what are the pieces that you need to put yourself out there in a way where others are going to go, wow, okay, how did he or she do that? Or man, I wish I sounded that good, or I wish my camera was that great. Kind of that same, again, the same way as like, oh, is that a Gucci or an Armani suit or something like that, right?
Right.
And that's what we're trying to do, is we want to give you the tools, we want to give you all the accessories to your digital suit, so that way others can, in a way, look at you and go, okay, that person really invested in, spent some time and thought about how they come across online.
I know, that's terrific.
And the confidence that it inspires when you're dressed up. Yeah, you look good, you feel good. When you look good and you feel good, then you sound good and you come across like you know what you're talking about. And when you had mentioned that digital suit, something I could certainly relate to, because again, just put it for me, just putting on a suit coat with a tie, I feel like I could rule the world. Yeah. But carrying this into the digital world makes a lot of sense.
And it's now multiple pieces instead of just, the suit jacket and pants, or wearing a button-down shirt with a tie. We see it as, well, okay, it's your microphone and your camera, but then it's also your lights and also maybe a microphone arm. We've people have told us that when they get our microphone arm and they put their mic on there and then they're moving it around and stuff, and they're just like, I feel professional now. Like I feel that I'm doing this right. And then you will come across differently, right? People can tell we work off of sight and sound, and it'll come across in your voice. It'll come across in your posture and your movement. And that's what we want to enable. So that's kind of where, the products that we make are moving in that direction. And there's one kind of niche thing which, well, it's not niche. We're experiencing it actually right now here, and we've started teasing it a little bit, but I can't reveal too many details. But essentially, what
come
we've
on,
been
right here, exclusive.
He's doing the FBI thing. He's leaving us with a teaser that then you're going to remember.
Yeah.
You see, he's smart.
But you'll notice that, during this whole thing, I've mostly been looking off camera, right? And, we're all looking at like the video preview because it's unnatural for me to just stare at the camera, right? The soulless thing that we talked about earlier. Because I also want to see your faces. I want to look at your beautiful faces and see your reactions. And so we're having that conversation. But to everyone who might be watching this, it'll come across as a little bit weird because no one's looking at the camera. Everyone's looking kind of off at their screen.
Right.
And so we've been thinking long and hard about how to solve this. And in the traditional sense, teleprompters have solved this, right? Again, if you're on a national broadcast, right, they've got these big screens, you've got all your text on there, your prompts and everything. But this hasn't really been solved in an elegant way in kind of the personal space, in your home setup. Prompters do exist, but they need maybe a tablet or an iPhone sitting in front of them, so that takes up your device. They're generally pretty flimsy and not well designed. If you then, what do you put on this tablet to, have your text on there? Can you even just pull up video? And so we thought long and hard about what could improve, what could the Elgato prompter experience be like? And we started teasing it a little bit at TwitchCon Europe, where we were just at, and we'll have more information soon. But that we think the next evolution is making these meetings and these calls and just how you put yourself online just even more personal.
Well, I can't wait to see that. Somebody that would concur with your sentiment around having the information to be able to use it very easily. There's a content creator. His name is Ed Lawrence. He's right in the UK, actually. His company's Film Booth. And he before the pandemic, he did production stuff, so video for companies. And he had just people come in and they would try to read the script or whatever. And he found that the moment they could go to more of a teleprompter scripted thing, the video itself came off way better. Whereas before he thought there's no way we could improve it by either teleprompter or something like a cue card. And he said the video value and how things came across improved dramatically. So I think you're leaning into that direction. And I can't wait to see that, because we do some things where we script as well. And it'd be nice to have something very easy to use either in and around the camera that would have some of the information on it, rather than, looking over here, which is kind of what I do from time to time.
And also most prompters out there today they're still focused on just DSLR cameras, right? They kind of assume that you're going to connect this up to some sort of lens, when that's not the reality for most folks at home, right? I myself am using a webcam, of course, one of our Facecam Pros, which still has that kind of webcam form factor, but most prompters aren't built with that in mind. And so again, we thought, well, what is the reality of someone at home? And how do they also want to control it? Is there a software component to it, right? It's the Elgato story of great hardware and great software coming together. So I'm really excited once we announce this thing.
Well, I just
announced it here on what.
Yeah, I know. You gotta come back on here with the device in hand, and we could feature it and show it, and probably do some demos with it. So I teasing it up, making me go back in and go look for the press release on your website to see if you have like a waiting list or something for it.
Yeah, that's going to be a game changer. They worked something into. We were talking about AI and we were talking about Descript earlier. So Descript as an editing software, I haven't tried it yet. They just announced it. But basically, you can record, you can read your screen, and the AI is bringing the eyeballs up to make eye contact with the screen.
NVIDIA did that a while back, didn't they? They announced that as like a beta thing that you could do.
They did, and
eye angle.
Yeah, we also integrated that into our Camera Hub software, which controls our cameras, and we haven't released that update yet, but it is somewhat creepy, because it's you can't get over that uncanny
Like the
valley
picture
of
that follows you around the room.
yeah, it's just there's something about it because it implemented, like blinking. It'll actually, if I blink, it'll blink your eyes, and it'll also do every now and then it'll like gaze away to make it seem like I'm, kind of naturally looking away. But it's just so something about it just doesn't feel right. And you can, again, we're visual, we're visual people. If humans are visual, we can tell these very subtle differences between like real eyes and these kind of superimposed eyes. And while it's a great solution and it's obviously incredible technology, right? You like taking a video frame and finding where the eyes are and kind of repositioning it and all of that. It's not quite there yet, and so we want to provide the the kind of the real solution for that, the real version of that.
Well, I can't wait to see when you guys take what you just said and take what folks over at like Metaphysics AI are doing, which is full on deep fake. So you've seen the deep fake Tom Cruise?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which is full on hyper realistic, I think is the term that's being used. And the actor who plays that role, the fake Tom Cruise, is so convincing. It's not just the fact that the technology exists, but the role and the character he's playing when he's doing that, it just takes that to the next level. So I'm really fascinated with this part of AI because it's going to allow folks that couldn't create content or maybe were afraid to be on camera, allow you to create an entire video without ever stepping foot in a studio.
Yeah, the implications are huge, right? But again, it kind of starts, even with these AI, you need the input, right? You need the input, and that can be text, it can be video, it can be something, but it needs the input into that. And that part is always going to be critical. That's the same way how, there's somewhat of a scare around AI are going to take jobs. Yeah, but you still need the people making them, right? Making the AI and all of the data generation, everything. So there's still a need for high quality input like audio, right? If you want to do some sort of, I think it was Voice Mod who is doing these, celebrity kind of fake voice now. You need your own voice to come across clearly in that, right? Or for these deepfake videos, you still need to start with high resolution, high quality video for that to come across well. So hardware and software are still going to play, and specifically high quality hardware is still going to play a huge role in that.
No doubt. I can't wait to, 6 months from now, I'm sure we'll be talking about something new that came out or was refined to make it even better. So that's where I want to go with you guys here. Rapid fire. I'm going to let your AI human brain weigh in on something, and I'm going to let you both participate here. So I'm going to give you an idea or a phrase, and I want you to just tell me what comes to your brain. What emotion?
You're testing us again. I would get worried that the test's coming up.
You're gonna pass. Don't worry about it, Neil.
Right.
You'll pass. So I'll hit up the first one for both of you, and then Dave and I will alternate here. So I'm gonna here it goes. First one: Teams versus Zoom. Go ahead, Neil. I'll let you go first.
This could be career limiting because they're both amazing partners of Crestron. So I have to play Switzerland on this one. I think
look, it's your ideas, whatever you feel. There's no right or wrong.
Hang on. Just cover that up here. No, I think to me, so Teams has got a great. It's like the IBM. No one's going to get fired for putting in IBM or Cisco or whatever it might be, or Dell. Dell make great stuff. So it is the end. People have a Microsoft Global Corporate Agreement. So it's, again, that word ubiquitous, you used it earlier. I think what for me, what Zoom can do, and what maybe Zoom, Eric, if you're listening, here's a top tip for you. They do some really good niche stuff. So let Microsoft do the kind of meeting room stuff, A to B meeting room stuff. If you've ever played with the Zoom Studio stuff, they've got the NDI stuff in there. And I think there's some really cool vertical apps that Zoom could really pull some punches on, video interviewing, medical, where you've got those specific use cases where it's not just a meeting room calling another meeting room. There are some specific, you want to put a CV on the screen, you want to do this. I think Zoom have got some great application-based stuff that's quite cool. So There's some departments within an organization that would really get a lot of value out of Zoom versus, again, Teams is just this amazing ubiquitous tool that you can use to, have meeting room to meeting room or people at home to the office. So I think, again, Zoom has got some great niches. That studio piece, again, as a content guy, awesome, amazing. To that.
And just as a side on that piece, there's a new kind of partnership with Zoom and Epiphan on allowing the Zoom end client to capture the video and to manage it within a professional, essentially a professional studio editing kind of software, so that you can use Zoom in the boardroom. You could use Zoom as an endpoint, have in the middle a professional studio kind of software, and then content delivery around that to various platforms out simultaneously, live or recorded, which is kind of fascinating that's happening. I believe they also have a Teams version of that as well.
I'm sure. And Crestron runs both Teams and Zoom and thinks that they're both equally as brilliant as each other.
Yeah. There you go. And a plug to Crestron on that. Absolutely.
I want to put Zoom on the spot, though. So we have a Microsoft Teams plugin for Stream Deck, which is fantastic. And if Andy over at Zoom is listening, where's the Zoom Stream Deck plugin? We're waiting.
Is this asked for what we want?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's my thought on both of them.
Very
I love
cool.
both, though.
Yeah.
So we kind of touched on this, but I'll ask it anyways. All right. So for someone that's starting out with creating content or starting to do some video meetings, they want to step their game up, what would you upgrade first? Your microphone or your webcam?
I think Phil already answered that one earlier, didn't he? Go on.
We did.
I would say the first thing would be audio. And then the second thing, Neil, you touched on that before the show, is was you, Dave, you were saying how you were putting stacks of like books and boxes on to get the camera angle better. It's the up the nose laptop camera angle. Get that microphone in a good position, you sound great, and then just lift the microphone the webcam up a little bit. No one wants to see the kind of, the under chin look like that. Yeah.
Hey, I got to do a quick shout out to Delane Clifford, the communication ace. She had a post that was about the different types of Zoom users, and the one that so she kind of impersonated the different types of camera angles and things. But the one that I laughed at the most was the up the noser. The up the noser.
Yeah. Do you remember the old Tandberg E20? It was like a desktop video.
Oh, the Tandberg, yes.
Yeah, the E20. That was a classic up the nose shot because the camera was literally bang straight up your nose. I think the other thing is composition. There was an amazing guy at Poly, Stephen Schaefer, still there. And he talks about, he's a videographer. And so he looks at stuff from film and cinematography. And he talks about video composition. And he talks about the rule of thirds. So again, you see people where they're like this, or you've got loads of ceiling above their head, or a load of things. It's the rule of thirds. You get the eyes in that. So most professional cameras can give you the grid line, compose the shot properly as a videographer. That's that again. That goes to moving your camera up as well and get it framed and shot perfectly right as well, because that makes a huge difference. No one wants to see a load of ceiling or a load of torso.
Yeah. That's free, right? You generally don't need anything extra just for some good framing. So there's different ways in which you can take what you already have today and just use that, right? Get started with that and then figure out maybe in the future, okay, what could an upgrade look like?
All right. I'd lost my connection temporarily. That's why I don't know what. Dave, did you take any additional ones?
Yeah, so three? we're on
three?
Rapid fire. You're the next.
Okay, number 3. Virtual background versus physical background.
I've already put my thing on this. I hate them. I don't like them. I think they're although on saying that, sorry, I hit my mic. I have 2 cameras set up. This is my main camera, which is a mirrorless camera, goes through a Camlink, Elgato Camlink into my PC via HDMI. Love that. Gives me really sharp quality. But when I do my presentations, I actually use OBS to present. I don't use PowerPoint. And I use either the NVIDIA virtual chroma key, or I'll use VCam, XSplit VCam, and I'll cut out myself and put myself on a virtual green screen. I've got an Elgato green screen behind me as well, but I use a virtual green screen to do stuff. So that's quite useful. But for traditional video meetings, a proper, nicely composed, not cluttered. Again, Phil's background looks beautiful because it's just, it's a nice setting. Mine looks a bit kind of, loads of toys on a shelf. But again, compose that setup, because I always think, again, what are you trying to hide? What's going on behind? I'm always curious what's behind the blur, what's behind the virtual background. And Phil's looks very good because he's using an amazing Facecam Pro camera. So the cut on his
I'm looking at the monitor on his feed, and it is. I would have thought
a sharp
that was
cut.
Yeah, it looks like a DSL, almost like a DSLR.
I know. Well, until he said it, I thought it was as well. But then there was when he said it, there's a couple of tiny bits you can pick up on. But
I am using
good.
the NVIDIA background blur as well.
And you can adjust it, can't you, in the Cam Studio on the Facecam software?
Exactly.
You can adjust the amount of blur as well, which is really nice. So I think with Zoom, it's like on or off. Whereas again on the Elgato, you can just tweak it up a little bit, just to take the edge off. Or you use a lens with loads of a shallow depth of field. This is an f1.4 lens on the Sony camera, which again gives you that bokeh effect, which is quite pleasing. So
that's something that I find that both Zoom and Teams do. Is
Zoom and Teams, the new terms.
Zoom and Teams. Their built-in background blur is way too aggressive to the point where it is not so fake. I mean, this right here, you could kind of, you could conceivably do this with a regular camera, elegant. And so it's elegant.
Very elegant. Yeah.
And so I'm gonna just turn it up here, right? But I could do like this. Well, that's completely fake, obviously, right?
That's too
harsh. What you see.
Yeah,
and that's what you see in all these applications that'll do it. And it's like, no, just turn that down. This is the maximum. That's like 100% here. I'm just gonna turn down to 0, right? That's more pleasant. It looks a little bit nicer. But for some reason, they all they go
all or nothing.
Aggressive.
On or off.
Yeah. So Zoom, Teams give us reduced background blur settings.
Right.
No, don't. Just use an Elgato camera and the camera software.
Or do that.
There you go. That'd be the solution right there.
Do you want to come work at Elgato, Neil? You've got all the products already and everything.
There's a few bits I'm missing. So just finish off my studio here and I'd love you.
All right.
I was on we were on a Zoom meeting a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if Rolando had caught this. It was an early morning meeting. The person that we were talking to was delivering some training to us, and he had a virtual background on. So he's using Zoom, virtual background, and he kind of got distracted for a second. So he kind of did one of these. And then someone had come into their office, hands and knees. You just saw like a blur of yellow. So it was like someone that lives with this person came into the office, dropped to the ground, didn't think that they were in camera, went across, grabbed something, and kind of left. But it was just this yellowish, blurring, moving mass kind of going back and forth. So that's what they were hiding. That their coworker, whoever they were living with. But kind of funny.
Yeah, again, props to your background, Rolando, with that blue is not. You got a much bit. My room's quite small, so I don't have the depth to be able to get that really nice blue behind me. But
I don't have. I actually. So that's beautiful. That you're teeing in something else. Just a side note that I don't have. It's not really that far behind me.
Really,
and the blue are coming from 2 accent lights that I got on Amazon for $10. Really? So this is something that is very accessible for somebody. The trick is then on the, like what you were talking about earlier, the f1.4. I've got a lens on my Sony camera as well, and I've dialed it to about 2.2, somewhere in that neighborhood. And so now the light that's coming off of here is exaggerated because when I look at my wall, it's gray.
Yeah.
It is gray. Let me let out the cat out of the bag. I have gray walls, but it looks as if I've painted it blue, and it's coming off from two LED lights down at the bottom.
That
it's all about foreground and background, isn't it?
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah. Go on, Phil.
Oh, it shows that you just also don't need much. It's very little can make a can make a huge difference and a huge impact.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that's the thing that you can pick up after over 100 videos now. I don't know. We're up to 400 or 500. I have no idea where we're at exactly, but those little tricks, and like you've got that background, Neil, I mean, that purple that still looks good. It definitely gives off that tech vibe. You got the gamer chair going on. I'm just playing around with standing up lately. I've done so many freaking videos. After all, I used to have a bunch of plants in the background. I've gone to the blue. I've gone to standing up, and then after a while, I'm tired of looking at myself standing up. Maybe I'll go back to being seated because I did that for almost every video. So that's kind of what I'm just playing around with standing right now. So Dave, did we have yeah, we did. TikTok. What do y'all think about when you hear the word TikTok? Let's start with Phil on this one. What do you think?
There's the personal and then there's the professional side. The personal side is I deleted it off my phone.
Hey, listen, don't be Zuck is listening to you too. Zuck is listening just as much as TikTok.
For some reason, TikTok, I noticed that my bathroom breaks went from about 1 to 2 minutes to like 5 minutes because I would pull out the phone and then start doing this. And then I kind of just kept sitting there and it was like, okay.
Time evaporates.
This is getting ridiculous, And same with sleep, At the end of the day, I would do what do they call it? Doom scrolling, right? Every now and then I would just, it's 10:30 or 11 and I'd be there and then it's 1 a.m. I'm like, shit. So
I do that with YouTube though. It doesn't matter what platform. You do the same with YouTube. You get
that's
YouTube
true, I
vortex.
guess.
You start here and you end here. You start, I look at this, and then suddenly you're looking at something completely different.
We had somebody on a couple of episodes ago, John Morgenstern, who's actually the head of media and investment over at VaynerMedia. So, and he said to us that the algorithms at TikTok and the algorithms at Facebook and Instagram have gotten so much better at delivering content that, you're going to be doing doom scrolling because the billions of data points that they have on users and lookalike audiences are at a point now where you give them a little bit of detail on who you are and what you like, they're going to keep serving that up and delivering it to a mass audience on a customized scale that we've never seen before.
It's just incredible, and it probably knows me better than I know me, right? It probably has a better psych profile of the things I do and don't like, and what I gravitate towards, and kind of the subconscious things that I enjoy. And so I had to delete it because it didn't. I don't know. On the professional side, though, right? It's a little bit different.
Right.
Of course, we're on TikTok. We make TikToks. We have to think about.
He's being Switzerland like I was, and Teams and Zoom.
Well, yeah. What does the creation flow of content look like? For TikTok, it's very different when it's so mobile focused, and they do allow desktop uploading by now. And there's also live streaming, right? Mm-hmm. So it's changing a little bit from just 15, 30 second. You can now do full multi-minute videos,
up to 10 minutes, I believe,
right? So it's all changing, and what does that look like? And it's interesting also that YouTube just enabled vertical live streaming together with horizontal live streaming. So that's also the vertical, just generally vertical content is becoming much more interesting lately.
It's a dominant form. I mean, everybody's chasing TikTok in some way or another. YouTube and everybody, Reels, and on both Facebook and I mean, just listen to Gary Vee. He talks about a lot about all this stuff in terms of mobile and short form and all that. But Neil, what do you think about when you hear?
I've answered it before. We had this conversation before on a LinkedIn poll that you did, I think, and I feel like my mum and dad did when I started talking to them about the internet when I was like 18 or 19 on a dial-up modem, and they're like, "Oh, this newfangled internet." I feel like that about TikTok now. I've got to that age where I'm now the old person going, "What's this TikTok business all about?" And I do feel old. Again, it's a bit like AI.
Walk up when I was a youngster. We walked 10 miles to school in rain.
Yeah, it's like your parents and Elvis Presley. And there's always the new thing that's new and thing. I think my issue with it is that I love creating content, but much like Patrick at Zoom, it's not my day job. It's a hobby. I'm an alliance director and technical marketing at Crestron, so I'm not people think, oh, you're the video guy at Crestron. Again, it's a hobby and something I do as a tool to help raise awareness and stuff. But for me to spend my time creating content for YouTube, LinkedIn, X, or whatever it's called now, and Instagram and TikTok, there's too many of them. So I've picked my poison, which is I like longer form horizontal content because I'm old. So I like YouTube. And I like LinkedIn because it's very business focused. So I don't. If I had more time on my hands and didn't have any hobbies, I would get more into TikTok and Instagram. And again, I don't do Instagram either. I find it, I don't have enough time in the day to sit there and do it. It's very clever. And again, the CapCut I think is made by TikTok as well. It's the same people, isn't it? So again, some of maybe the technology they've taken out of TikTok, I'll use that in a content creation tool. But as a social media network, I'm going to continue to be a dinosaur and be a YouTube and LinkedIn person as my two.
Well, it's number 2 in search, right? In terms of
what, YouTube
search engine, YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, you said earlier, it's like, how do I? When I always used to talk about YouTube to my company and said we should create more YouTube videos, and this is why I'm doing it. It's the number one search tool for how do I. Because to write a PowerPoint presentation, write a PDF of take the thing out of the box, plug this cable in, do this, do that, and this kind of step process, to be able to visually show that of this cable goes in here, this cable goes in there, and then that goes into there, and you push this button and it works. You want to, my belt broke on our tumble dryer the other day, and I just went on YouTube and searched for how to change a belt on a Bosch tumble dryer and watched the video and bought a belt for $10 and changed it. If I had to read a manual of how to dismantle a German tumble dryer, which is amazingly built, it would not be possible. But to watch a video, to know what you're into, was a lot easier. So again, for me, I think creating video and creating content is a much better tool. And again, Google is the number one search engine in the world, I believe, still, and they own the second largest search engine in the world, which is YouTube, and the number one for how do I. So.
Can I throw in an interesting two little stats? So YouTube, I believe it was YouTube, for YouTube, a stat just came out that, and I just pulled it up just to verify, and I'm going to just read here. Its internal data indicate that close to 45% of overall YouTube viewing in the US today is happening on TV screens. So nearly 50% of content is viewed on a TV, which, we think about 50, 60, 70-inch TV, which is, is completely the opposite of a mobile device. A mobile device is vertical, it's small, right? It's in your hand. So it's like the complete opposite of what we all think, which is that mobile is completely dominating, which again, for TikTok might be the case, but for YouTube, I find that an incredibly interesting stat. And it's something that informs us at Elgato and also how we produce the content for our products. Because if 50% of people are watching on these big TVs, which are all 4K these days, well, we want to make sure that everything, is high quality. Viewable in 4K and also readable, right? Like you don't want really small text in videos because of that. And then the other thing, Neil, since you were talking about PDFs, this is another kind of insider tidbit here is at Elgato, we have shifted to doing video-based reviewers guides for our products. So we don't do PDFs, written docs, or anything like that anymore. We actually put together a video where the PM or someone on my team on technical marketing, we'll put together a 15-minute video walking through the product, because that is much more engaging for PR and media to watch, or for a tech reviewer, than it is to just, hand them a 10-page PDF, go, here you go, here's all the info. Yeah, they'll glance through it or whatever, but there's no story, there's very little storytelling.
Phil, that sounds like a pro tip to me. If I ever heard one,
and I saw one before we joined that Dave did. Dave's done a great one for joining, What the Tech, which I sat and watched beforehand. So, that would be much better than an email coming through, to sit and watch that video that the amazing Dave created. So.
That was really nice. Yeah.
There you go.
And so we found that it just, when we put out these, we send these. Or I guess what's also interesting is just the amount of people that see is very low, right? I think for our Facecam Pro, we send it around. It's got 400 views. It's uploaded to YouTube. It's got 400 views. We put a lot of time and effort into a video that only ever got 400 views, but that's going out to content creators, to media, to PR, right? To the folks who we want to make sure that they know the vision that we're presenting, and that they can then, relay that to, the people who look at the reviews. And again, today, who wants to really read a PDF? I mean, I'm sure there's still a certain amount of folks who love diving into those, but for the people that we're addressing, right, these videos are much more engaging. So we've shifted to that.
And multi-language as well. I mean, you used to have to create the document, the release notes or whatever that went in the box of the product. And you'd have to put them in 20 different languages. Now you just create an English video on YouTube, turn the captions on, and it'll auto-translate it to, Swahili or whatever you want. So makes it a lot easier on that. So, yeah.
I'll tell you, we'll still get a customer once every now and then that will leave us a review and will say, there is no instructions in this package. But I've definitely opened up instructions in a device that we sell, whether it's any of these brands that we've mentioned or others. And like you just said, Neil, they'll have 12 different languages. But if I open this thing up and the whole thing is open, I'm like, shit, where do I even start? You don't realize that it's really just one little section that you need to be paying attention to.
Yeah.
Just becomes ridiculously overwhelming. Also an opportunity for the manufacturer to save on some expense, save the planet, save a little bit of paper, save a little bit of ink.
Yeah, we're switching over to QR codes there actually as well. So on the box, you'll get a QR code, and that's of course then geo. It's takes you to a website, figures out where you are, presents you the manual in your language right away, which is nice. So it's actually even just a nicer user experience than just take your phone, scan it, boom, you've got it right there. You don't need to open a little pamphlet, or if you lose it, right, you go, oh my gosh, where was this thing? Well, we've just got it all online.
The product changes as well. Again, you'll do software firmware updates to the product. The products are always going to evolve. What version 1 was to version 2 and 3. Again, the manual, the release notes, or the video instructions can change. It's got USB-C now rather than a USB-A, or it's got a whatever it might be, feature X or Y. So yeah, huge props for that one. Love that.
Well, I mean, you've dropped some major nuggets that I've also heard some just recently with the other bigger content creators. One, I think I just want to highlight this again because it's important. If you're creating content for YouTube and you want to verify what Phil just said, you can go into your Creator Studio, which is your account inside of YouTube. You can then look at where your views are coming from, and you will see how many views and impressions are generated via desktop, via mobile, via tablet, and TV. And so that's where you would want to go if you have a YouTube account, and you can check that out and you can see what percentage. Big time. I heard another content creator then talk about QR codes because of what you just said, Phil. They are going to add more QR codes and use that inside the video, because if you're on a big screen, the impact on that is that you're not going to be able to go, click on the next video like you would on your mobile, right? If you have a QR code that comes on the screen periodically or whenever, you're able to take your mobile phone and capture the QR code on whatever the thing, whether it's a product, a promotion, or whatever, and then you're able to go see the next thing, versus trying to fish around with your remote control, and it's really godly awful to do when you're watching a YouTube video. I've done that on my TV. It's just terrible, right? So those are two big things that you can do to from a content creator or leveling up your game. But for sure, everything we've talked about will take you from being, junior league, from varsity, all the way up to all pro status. I think both Neil and Phil, you've done both an excellent job providing an audience with an amount of tips, of pro tips, even some of the ones we highlighted. Was there anything we missed that you want to leave us with that hasn't been said?
Neil, I'm going to put you on the spot because I can't think of anything.
No, I was going to say, I would urge anyone who is even just thinking about creating content, or again, if you want to up your game in your meetings or your webinars, whatever you do, don't be afraid. Just start doing it. You can always make things better. You can learn this. As I said earlier, just press record, do more of it, and you will hone your skills over time. I'm here. Obviously, I work with Crestron. I'm not paid by Elgato. Elgato don't, pay me. But I do love their gear. Their gear is amazing. And again, I work for a very large webcam vendor and headset vendor previously, and I partner with another one. Their gear is great, but for me, if you're serious about video creation, then the stuff that Elgato puts out is, again, as you said, major league rather than so again, just go and check it out and buy a Stream Deck. It's lovely.
Great. There you go. There you go. Phil, anything else?
And I don't work for Elgato. This is great.
We should have all Elgato shirts, right?
We should, yeah.
I think I can also make that happen, possibly. But to kind of piggyback off what Neil said there around just do it, I would also leave you with, be yourself, right? Don't be afraid to, if you have behind you and your setup, it's just all plants, or maybe it's just really techie, or maybe you've got a bunch of plushies or something, whatever it is. I mean, that's who you are. Don't try
imitate.
to hide that. Don't imitate. Yeah, don't try to hide that. Just put that forward, because that way you'll come across as the most authentic. I've gotten comments on the Lord of the Rings thing, and at the beginning I was kind of like, oh my gosh, are people going to think I'm a nerd? And it's like, well, A, I am one, and B, what is the problem with that, right? There isn't
nothing.
One. So just, yeah, exactly, embrace it. So, just embrace, where you are, what your setup is, and, who you are. And I think you will appreciate that much more than trying to, use some sort of virtual fake background and, try to cover up and stuff like that. So yeah, that would be kind of a tidbit there. And then absolutely on the Elgato side, I am paid by them. And,
the only one of us here paid by Elgato.
So yeah, I mean, if you're interested in any of the gear that we talked about today, specifically, the Stream Deck as well, then I would highly suggest going on our website, checking out the products. We also make lots of YouTube videos. You'll see my face in a lot of them, where I dive a little bit deeper into those various products. And if you go to
and you've got a bunch of influencer all over YouTube. The one that I can think of that I know that likes talking about yourself is Harris Heller. I don't know.
Oh yeah, he's incredible. Yeah,
he's an incredible content creator, and he makes incredible videos. So, and he does love your gear. I have to tell you, all the different. I haven't consumed all his content, but the ones that I've seen the Elgato stuff being featured, and he's loves your stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, let's say that Harris already even has some of the stuff that I was talking about here, because we also try to get out the gear early to creators to actually get their feedback, right? We can't involve them necessarily in 100% of the development process, but as soon as we have something where we're like, okay, the vision is here, we've achieved what we want, and now we want to get in their hands and refine, we try to get them involved as early as possible. And so
that's cool.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Very smart.
Already something where he's using some of the gear that I might have teased here.
Well, so I'll be looking for a video for him soon then on the I don't know, I'll call it a teleprompter toy or something that you're coming out with. Not really a toy, but something in that field. All right.
Definitely.
Well, you could catch Neil Fluester. He's got a YouTube channel. You could also check him out on LinkedIn. Elgato's got an army of influencer. You can find all kinds of tech reviews on their toys, their devices, their work and work productivity devices that you can incorporate. If you want to nerd out, like I do, like Phil, like Neil, on more content like this and helpful information on how to level up your game at work, go check out our last episode on the state of work. We dive into some research and how remote work has changed, and there's actual numbers that you can use in your workplace to help create policy or to help balance out what needs to be said in your workplace when it comes to remote work with hard facts and the latest research. So go ahead and check that out at circuitloops.com or wherever you consume your podcast. Dave and I will see you in that episode. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.